kids! So in this video, we're going to learn about separation techniques. Mixtures are all around us, from a bowl of salad to a cup of tea and to the sandy water at the beach. Sometimes, we want only a substance in a mixture and therefore we need to separate it out from the mixture. How do you separate the tea from the tea leaves? Separating a mixture from solids. We can see different mixtures around us. A mixture is made up of two or more different substances mixed together. The substances in a mixture can be gases, liquids, or solids. This is a mixture of raisins and different types of nuts. The substances are all solids. The nuts have different sizes, shapes, and colors. The beach has a mixture of solids and liquid. The sand, seashells, and pebbles are solids, and water from the sea is a liquid. This is a mixture of oil and water. Both oil and water are liquids. The substances in a mixture usually can be separated. Separating the substances from a mixture allows us to obtain the pure substances so that we can use them separately. If we want to separate a mixture of substances, we need to know the different properties of each substances. Understanding the properties of the substances in a mixture, such as their states of matter, magnetic properties, and solubility in water, can help us determine the most appropriate separate techniques to use. Handpicking. We can separate some substances from their mixtures by handpicking. This works well with solid substances that have noticeable differences in size, shapes, or colors. We can see shells from the sand at the beach by picking them out with our hands. We can separate the tomatoes from the bowl of vegetable salad by picking out the tomatoes with our hands. We can use the hand-picking method to separate a small amount of substance from a mixture. However, if there is a huge amount of mixture to be separated, is this separation technique still preferable? Sifting is a technique used to separate solids of different sizes. A sieve has a net that retains the bigger solid while allowing the smaller solids to go through. The size of the holes of a sieve to be used depends on the size of the particles to be separated from the mixture. Some sieves have fine holes, allow only very small particles to pass through them. Some sieves have big holes that allow big particles to pass through them. A mixture of sand and flour can be separated by using a sieve with fine holes. Flour is very fine and it can pass through the sieve. However, sand particles are too big and they are retained on the sieve. At the construction sites, stones are separated from a mixture of sand and stones by using a large sieve. The holes of the sieve are smaller than the stones. The sand particles are small so they can pass through the sieve. The stones are bigger than the sand particles and the holes of the sieve, therefore, they are retained from the sieve. Separation by magnets. Magnet attraction is useful for separating substances that are attracted to magnets from the substances that are not attracted to magnet. For instance, Iron fillings can be separated from a mixture of iron fillings and sand by using a magnet. Iron fillings are attracted to the magnet, whereas sand is not. How do recycling centers and scrapyards separating magnetic objects from other objects? In recycling centers and scrapyards, a crane with an electromagnet attached to its arm is used to separate magnetic objects from non-magnetic objects. When the electromagnet is turned on, magnetic object will be attracted to the electromagnet and lifted from the piles of scraps. When the magnetic objects are moved to a specific location, the electromagnet is turned off and thus it releases the magnetic objects. So this is the crane using for separating the scraps metal. Separating insoluble solid from liquids. There are few ways to separate insoluble solids from liquids. There are decantation, filtration, and precipitation. Decantation, the simplest technique to separate a liquid from an insoluble solid. The solid is allowed to settle to the bottom of the container before the liquid is carefully poured off the top. So this is the insoluble solid and the liquid part. Decantation can be applied in making tea. The tea leaves are insoluble in the tea. So, when the tea leaves settle to the bottom of the pot, the tea can be poured into a cup while the tea leaves remain in the pot. Do you know that you are applying decantation when washing rice? Rice is insoluble in water. The water containing dirt and dust is poured away while the rice remains in the basin. Filtration is used to separate insoluble solids from a liquid in a mixture using a filter. The sand is insoluble in water and the filter paper is used as filter. The holes of the filter paper are very fine that the sand particles cannot pass through them. So this is the filter paper. You put it here. When the mixture of sand water is poured onto the filter paper, the sand is left on the filter paper as a residue, and the water is collected in the beaker as filtrate. Filter paper is used in coffee makers to separate the coffee grounds from the drink. How do you separate cooked noodles from the water it is boiled in? Noodles are insoluble in water. We can use a sieve or colander as a filter to separate the noodles from the water. Instead of filtration, do you think we can use decantation to separate the noodles from the water? Which separation techniques is more appropriate? Why? We can also use layers of different stones and sand to filter raw water. Insoluble solids such as soil, dust, twigs, and leaves will be filtered out, leaving cleaner water as the filtrate. This is one of the steps used to purify water in most of our water treatment plants. Let's know more. There are many other separation techniques such as sublimation, centrifugation, crystallization, and fractional distillation. Precipitation involves the conversion of a substance that dissolves in a liquid into a solid by adding other substance. Then the solids that is insoluble in the liquid is removed from the liquid by filtration. In water treatment plants, alum, a kind of chemical, is added into the raw water to precipitate the dirt and bacteria in the water. Vinegar is added into milk to precipitate proteins in milk. The proteins are precipitated as curds. Curd is an insoluble substance in mixture. The curd is then separated from the mixture by filtration. Thanks!